And welcome to Recovery Report Live. I'm Dan Odess, founder of GlobalPro, here at the Nucleus Hub for the Recovery Report Live. As you all know, GlobalPro has managed more than $1 billion in loss. We have also represented thousands of community associations and businesses in the placement of loss. We have an active storm season. Things continue to roll along. I'm joined by our very own Matthew Sengsourinh, president of GlobalPro Florida here, to talk about this storm season. Again, reminder of what's to come, what's going to be happening, the predictions that are out there. There's active waves. There's actually quite a few if you actually look at the ocean surface throughout the world. There's a lot of activity out there. So, as it may have been a little bit quiet since, Hurricane Beryl hit, and we got a little bit of quietness, in other parts of the world, the storm season continued to roll along. And that's why it's always important to stay vigilant in your preparedness. So just as a reminder, talk a little bit about the predictions, right? So NOAA's forecasting 17 of 25 named storms for the Atlantic hurricane season. That's the Atlantic. But as I just stated, there are storms occurring in other parts of the world. So again, stay vigilant in your preparedness. We want to make sure that you have the information you can use. That's what this broadcast is all about. And that's why Matt and I are here to talk about all the things you should or shouldn't be doing when it comes to this storm season. Now, I want to talk about key points about this prediction, the prediction for the most recent storm, Matt, because it looks like it's threatening the east coast of the United States. What are they looking at? What are they seeing? And why should we continue to stay vigilant?
Well, right now we have a very disorganized storm system that is approaching kind of the Caribbean islands. And, the wind speed, the size of it, and the fact that it's slowly but surely starting to kind of get a little bit more organized, and we may see some convection. Again, I'm not a meteorologist or a weatherman.
No, and this is definitely not a meteorology report.
But it looks like this type of setup, with the way that this season has already, had a change from La Nina to La Nina, excuse me. This is kind of the timing of when it would happen. August to September is the bulk of the opportunity or the chance of storm creation. The weather's hot, the water's hot. Just got back from the Keys. Not as hot as the past couple of years, but pretty hot. Hot enough that it could build a storm and cause the convection to gather and grow. But right now, potentially, we are in the middle or the center of the path of the cone of what looks like to be forming. Now, it's got to go over a lot of islands. There's a lot of land. There's this dust that's going to come and kind of chop it up a little bit. And then you have the wind shear because we're in La Nina. We have kind of the wind shear that's not there, but there is some coming off the west. There's actually a little organization or a little storm in the Gulf side. Yeah. So who knows? Maybe we'll see them hit each other, and it'll be, they'll blow
push it more north and not expect it. Now, just as a reminder, GlobalPro historically had always on the front lines, over a decade of doing it, representing thousands of community associations, over $1 billion in loss. I mean, we have handled extreme hurricane damages to a lot of structures, businesses, community associations. We've seen the shift in the policy conditions and how these things are treated. And all this information is important, though, because as it relates to deductibles and the way in which things will be named, the severity of the storm plays a lot into the science, which goes into decision-making by experts that are hired by insurance companies, which then make ultimate decisions whether or not your building can sustain damages. So, yes, this is not a meteorological report on the storms itself, but at times we do need to treat treat it like a science experiment or project in a way and get deep into these things, the barometric pressures, the wind speeds, the different types of precipitation. All of these things are contributing factors to damage to your building. So it is important for you all to be aware of the conditions in a storm, the expected conditions, so that in the event that something were to happen, rather than getting the old stiff arm from the insurance company, you have the information you need in order to make a correct and proper decision for your community association. Now, Matt, we kind of write up our own take on these things, though, and we have it on our website. Why don't you explain where can we find this information as our community associations are looking for our take on these things? Yeah,
so we have a page dedicated to it on the website, excuse me. It's globalpro.com/storm center. It's our storm center. If you follow us on social media, on LinkedIn, we're always putting the link or the link in bio, or even in the stories. There's always going to be a link to the page, and that page gets updated. So we've been able to tie in some of the NOAA information, some of our own information, and we have things around that box for the hurricane information or storm information that helps you for all types of claims. So there's educational stuff on there that's great. There's an update on the storms or the activity that's ongoing, and then there's also ways to get to NOAA and other, we think relevant websites that have a ton of great information pre, post, and during a storm.
Yeah, so and again, that is important, right? So you're getting our take on the conditions and what we think is important to you as it relates to financial damages you may sustain, the value, sticks and bricks, and labor that goes into restoring your property, or the loss of your income that you may have experienced for your business. Again, these are all important factors. It may not seem like it is, but believe me, insurance companies have become more particular when it comes to how close you were to the eye, where you were in the storm, was the convection systems. They get really deep. So you also need to be doing that when making your claims. But rather than making your own claims, that's what the experts at GlobalPro do. We've done it for more than a decade, over $1 billion of recovery. Important, check out that website, as Matt mentioned, the Storm Center, as well as all the additional resources. We're going to continue blogging and updating our social media with information relating to the storm as it does threaten the east coast of the Florida. It's a couple of models I saw predict that this storm actually continues to ride into the Gulf and then up the west coast of Florida into the Panhandle yet again. I mean, we've seen this already, right? Michael was supposed to pummel South Florida on the east coast. It skid across over into the Gulf and then rode the coastline right up into the Panhandle, Category 5 or greater. It's really important. Again, that information about being Category 5 actually was not initially reported. It was reported as a Category 4, but as I started collecting data from local meteorology areas and reporting centers that were shut down during it but continued to collect data, as well as damages they saw on site, going, wow, this had to have been something stronger. And there was no tornadoes identified in the area, et cetera, they increased the category of that storm. And that is important when we're looking at conditions in a building. Newer buildings with newer construction materials are supposed to be able to sustain or resist these types of storms and damages. But as those categories rise from a 4 to a 5, suddenly those new, better materials reach their limits and are destroyed and damaged. So really important stuff to remember and something to be obviously be aware of. But let's talk about insurance. Let's talk about some of the issues in these policies, Matt. I want to bring you back in and talk to you about master insurance policies, unit owner insurance, wind and flood, and then the 3Ds, as we like to call it. We have an entire certified class for you property managers tuning in. Let us know if you have a group of property managers yourself, you want to come down, sit down, do a workshop, or do something together with your other managers to talk about how you should be making these claims from the best in the business. That's what we are here at GlobalPro, over $1 billion in recovery. How you are to handle these situations. We break it down real simple for you all the time. So Matt, talk to us a little bit about insurance coverage insights for community associations as it relates to this storm season.
So there's always 2 or 3 things. If you've heard us speak, if you heard me speak, obviously we're going to be a little repetitive, like a broken record here with some of this stuff. But you mentioned master insurance policy or insurance policy just in general. Associations, I always say, should always have a copy of their certified copy of the policy, Usually the best time to do is after renewal. So once you have renewal, there's about a 45-day window where you're going to get the actual policy. But if you request it at that time, it's being prepped and put together. It's already bound, obviously, and then they should be able to send it to you after about 45, 50 days. But you should ask every year. Every year you should try to get a copy of that. In that certified copy, you're going to have all of the deductibles, all of the coverages, all of the sublimits, all of the exclusions, all the endorsements. You're going to have your entire package policy. And again, that's important for the simple fact that, when you have a potential Category 5, Category 3, a bad storm comes and it's on the way, everyone's prepping for the storm. They're not thinking about things like that. So it might just not be top of mind at that moment because you're worried about water and food and gas and evacuations and all sorts of different things. Or you're not going to think about your policy, your insurance policy. Then the storm comes and damage occurs and you try to call someone or email someone or text someone to get it and nobody's answering. There's no phone service, no internet, no Wi-Fi, no broadband. So the hardest time to get information when you absolutely need it is obviously after a storm hits. So we try to get prepared, try to get it up front, and obviously it's always great to have a copy for your records as an association and as a CAM. As a property manager, you should just put it on the calendar and do it. That's one. Again, that's going to help you understand your deductibles, your coverages, your sublimits, all the ins and outs of the policy that the association has paid for, has assumed a premium for and paid for, and that should help you out with strategy. Now, this is where we kind of have the best synergy, I think, is the way to describe it. Insurance policies are so complex today. Coverages are so complex. Exclusions, putting something back into the policy through an additional coverage, endorsements on top of that, all the different ways that a policy is built and the forms are put together is what makes it so complex and so difficult to understand if you're not looking at these all day. We look at hundreds a week at minimum, like just at minimum in general. Sometimes I look at 4, 5, 6 different ones throughout an entire day, and I'm reading the entire policy and I'm going through all of it. And now, a lot of the forms might say the same thing. A lot of them will be similar, obviously, but if it's a manuscript policy, it's not going to be. And a lot of these layered policies, things like that, are not going to be the same. So it's always good to have someone who you can call. Obviously, GlobalPro, we're here, your insurance coverage experts. You can always call us, even if it's just to look at the policy, give you an idea of what's going on so you can understand. For example, the legislative changes that have occurred over the past 3.5, 4 years, we'll call it, have drastically changed the policy forms, and in particular, windstorm, named storm, or hurricane deductibles and things like that in your policy. It's always good to understand what that might be, especially now. Where the synergy is for us, though, is that, A, we can obviously analyze that and give you a review and give you the entire information for you so you have it nice, succinct, and easily digestible and understandable. But 2, we can also help you, because of those deductibles today, value the actual damages that may occur at the property. That's the most important part. You can't make a demand or adjust a claim and have a demand that doesn't fit the actual damages. Whether it's too high or too low, you're in trouble either way. And so you're going to need experts. You're going to need the right people to come in and evaluate all of that and make sure it's properly documented and reported.
But why shouldn't an association just simply rely on their contractor to bid to something immediately after a major storm hits the area?
Well, there's lots of reasons why. One, they don't have your best interest at heart when it comes to the insurance policy and recovering. They want to do the work and get paid and move on. And again, think about that from the standpoint of it's hard to call someone, your agent, the insurance company, anybody, and get your policy at the time. It's also hard to call another GC. So if you have a GC and they're willing to come do the work, they can give you bids, they can give you estimates and proposals. You can have all that stuff so you can make an educated decision on what you need to do at the time to start mitigation, to start maybe some temporary repairs, things of that nature. But again, if you think that they're going to help you and that they're actually interested in you recovering, that doesn't make any sense because that's not their interest, right? Their interest is to get paid, do the work, and move on.
And legally speaking, they can't even adjust the claim anyways if they're providing construction services. And most of these contractors just don't know insurance. I mean, that's just point. Just like your insurance agent is licensed to sell you a product, they're not licensed to adjust the claim. Just like your condo association lawyer is there to help you navigate 718, 711 statutes in Florida and elsewhere. Yeah. They're not there to adjust claims nor provide you any sort of insurance services. Not what they do. It's the only thing we do here is handle insurance services for businesses and community associations. Why do those two uniquely fit together? Because it's commercial policy forms. Something that we didn't mention already, wind-driven rain. That was an anomaly when 2017 and Hurricane Irma hit. It snuck up on so many people, but we at GlobalPro were screaming about it for years prior to it because we were seeing it added to policies. Now, the wind-driven rain took on many, many different meanings now, and it's evolved into something. Now they have sublimits and exclusions for flat-out hurricane damages that we cover, even though that was clearly not the intent of these endorsements. We learned that through either testimony from representatives of insurance companies or just the pure language, just the words written on the page. Yep. You need to understand that we are looking at these things. We are tracking trends already. We can see so many trends that are already happening, and we're talking about those things right here. Matt has mentioned several things about contractors. We've seen an uptick in interest in contractors trying to convince community associations not to take the advice of a licensed adjuster representing the interest of the association. And I'm not talking about the adjuster representing the interest of the insurance company because they certainly do not represent your interest. And I love hearing, and we heard this just today actually from a property manager, the board is convinced that the adjuster sent out by the insurance company is their friend, and they're scared of their insurance company. Yeah. What do you think is going to happen when those adjusters are incredibly overwhelmed? Because that happens every single storm season. It's just numbers. There are absolutely not enough seasoned and skilled, if there are any, commercial adjusters, guys that actually do commercial lines insurance, available to adjust claims if a major category storm hits anywhere in Florida or Texas region. There's just not. And they are overwhelmed. So what do? They outsource things. They create situations to increase the amount of time it takes to do things that are they don't add any sort of value, right? They don't add value to the claims process. We understand these things. We know how to push the buttons of the insurance company to move these things along. So let's hit the 3Ds, Matt. Let's talk about document, describe, defend. Document, describe, defend. Walk us through what those means to us and our clients.
Sure, yeah, the 3Ds of damage, it's easy to remember those: document, describe, defend. We always talk about the documentation as one of the most important aspects of the adjustment of the claim, improving your damages, right? So the intent of the contract policy for the insured is to prove your damage. If you can prove your damage, then you should have an easier adjustment technically, right? But that's not always how it goes. But the first pillar, document the damage. Take pictures in every angle. If it's a room, for example, right? Go to every corner, take a picture. Take a picture going both ways. Take a picture from the center, 360 if you can. Take a picture of the ceiling. Take a picture of all the corners of the windows, any baseboards, anywhere that could separate and things like that. Take those pictures. The more pictures, the better. If you want to take video, you can do that too. Sometimes you have to take video if there's flooding or something's moving and you have to show it, of course, right? But just don't say anything. Please don't say anything, because there's nothing you're going to say during that video that's going to help your cause. It's much better just to be quiet, let the damage, the gravity of the situation, the severity of the damage speak for itself. And the more you document, the better. The reason why you want to document is because you're going to have to describe what happened to the insurance company, right? And when you're describing what happened to the insurance company, you have to be precise. You have to have supporting documentation. That's why you want to take pictures. And you also want to make sure that you can prove what coverage should be applied to it. Meaning, we talked about wind-driven rain, right? I can't tell you how many hurricane claims we had from Ian where we're excited. They say, okay, we agree with your scope and we agree with the amount of money. Maybe they have some knickknacks here or there and they reduce something here or there. And then you say, okay, great, we're greater than $1 million. And then they go, oh, no, hold on. There's a wind-driven rain sublimit, and that's $100,000. And of the $1 million, we told you that the damages were valued at, 300,000 of them are wind-driven rain. So you're only getting $100,000 for that first third of that million. And believe me, now we are obviously we are anticipating things like that. We understand things like that. The documentation and the way you describe the damage is going to be the most important part of making sure you get the right coverage, the coverage you've paid for, you paid a premium for as an association or as an insured, right? So after you've documented, after you've described properly, you have to defend your claim now, because the insurance company is not just going to pay you. That's just not how it works, unfortunately. And that's why we always say that they don't have your best interest at heart. If they did, you would tell them, hey, here's my damage, here's how much it cost me, and they would just pay you. I mean, I've had attorneys for insurance companies tell me that RCV policies are reimbursement policies, but when you give them the bill, they want to pay half of it. So that doesn't make any sense, right? You can't reconcile those two things.
They either hate the price, or they hate the scope, or they hate both, right?
Right.
So and they just manifest some other way in which dealing with this. Now, how does defend work into this?
Defend in the sense that, okay, so you've documented it, right? You have supporting documentation to support the way you've described the damages and the way you've claimed them. Now you've valued them and you've presented your demand and your documentation, everything to the insurance company. You've made your claim, right? The adjustment is ongoing. You made your claim. Now you have to defend your position. Why do you need to be paid for that specific roof tile? And why do you need the entire roof? What's the extent of the damage? Is there a certain percentage? Has the tile been discontinued? There's all these variables, all these factors. And if you don't know what you're doing,
or relying on a contractor who's only interested in doing a job.
That's right. Who just says, no, we can do this way. We can put this tile instead of the one you have.
Oh, but someone on our staff is an adjuster, Matt. They know what they're doing too, right?
That's right. So there's all these variables that happen, right? You want the highest and best use of your expert, right? So you want the most experienced, the best at valuing the damages, and the best at describing those damages. So when you get to the defense part, right, you have to defend your position, your claim. It's a much easier discussion, and then you have the rest of the policy, the benefits of the policy insured to use. Meaning, maybe you have to go to appraisal, maybe you have to request mediation. Who knows? But if you don't do all the upfront stuff, you don't document properly, you don't describe properly, Later is when you get hurt, right? And when I say defend, what I mean is you have to make sure you've complied with your notice requirements, your post-loss duties. You know, is there a situation where you're getting to that legal side of the things, unfortunately? Do you have time? Is there time to file suit? Have you made sure that you did all that? Have you complied? Have you given them a POL, right? Have you complied with all your statutory and contractual obligations? If so, okay, you've defended yourself.
And we're talking in the context of modern insurance. I mean, the idea of defending yourself and making your own claim seems, counterintuitive or like an oxymoron as it relates to the insurance company's fiduciary indemnification obligations to a policyholder where they need to make you whole and have the promise to pay on that, right? But this is modern insurance. This is what we've been dealt, the hand we've been dealt. And unfortunately, this is what the legislator largely has allowed the insurance companies to do. This is the construct in which you're working with and the construct you're working in. And we want to make sure that you have the proper representation. And that's why it's so important to make sure that you understand and have someone on your side and understand the role players in this and make sure you have someone on your side protecting your interests. And it's not your contractor or the mitigation company or let's even say the broker. The broker's not paid. The commission you're paying them is not to handle the claim, regardless of whatever they may even say, which would be a total lie, or what you may believe because of some quote-unquote past experience or, some relationship. Now, they're going to butter you up throughout the process of buying new insurance and doing these things. But understand, they are a salesperson. That is what they're doing. They're winning your trust. Why? Because they don't want you to go buy from someone else. So if they think that if the product they sold you not going to perform, they're going to try to do everything they can to make you believe that they've done everything they can to make them do what they're supposed to do. And it was some other factor that led to that issue. And so they like to, and they often will, try to blame other people or factors on why the product didn't perform. But honestly, they have no idea what they're talking about. It almost always has to do with a market issue or condition where an insurance company just decides not to pay claims or takes a position based on new claims manuals or handling and how they're going to do something. That's purely what this is. We've identified this stuff. I've testified in court as an expert in damages as well as causation and bad faith. I can tell you, I've looked at these things. I've looked at the claims handling, the manuals. I dissected these things. We can tell you right now, without representation in today's market, if there's a major category storm that hits this area or you experience a water loss, a fire, or anything else, you are absolutely at a disadvantage when dealing with this. Well, I want to wrap up on that point. It's been an awesome show, Matt. Thanks so much for participating in the Recovery Report Live. I mean, you've been hosting so many of these things.
Good to be back.
It's great to get out here, talk to you guys about these things. We have so many cool things coming. If you haven't already, in that resource section, check out the Claims Advocate. We've been emailing, blasting around, sharing it with a lot of community association managers. It's packed full of all of this information and so much more. But again, that's what we're all about, providing you access and access to information you can use. And that's why we're here. If you like this or any of the other information we're providing, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like us, and follow us on all the social media. And join us every single week right here, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on the Recovery